Hey, it's Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It is July, what is today? Today's July 15th, so we're halfway through this month, and really we had today is two legs down. It looked like it might be a range day, so of course I had this blue on here earlier with the overnight highs, the overnight lows. In the end, you could remove that because what we did was we had a leg down and we went sideways before we made the second leg down, and it just took a long time to make that second leg. And you can see we actually bounced to the tick before we pushed down lower one more time and then reversed. And so not much happened from that point forward. We did get a bounce here, but there's just not a lot of trades up here. There's you could probably put this other trend line on here. The problem is it just doesn't really come into play. Maybe it's like that. It tends to fit there, but doesn't fit well. And so I really just was playing the shorter term stuff here. So, and I think that's better. I had that conversation with somebody in the forum today, um, trying to find these big channels that you just can't find something that looks really good or that really helps you. And then they struggle to know if they've got it right. Well, if that's the case, if it's not pretty obvious, it probably means it's a range and we're just flipping up and down, and just move to the secondary short term stuff and you'll be better off. That's pretty much how I would recommend to play it. So uh, anyway, just like this one right here, I played it off those first two swings, but after the fact, really, I would say it's probably more like that. It's just one steep, small channel, and then we bounced here. Originally, I probably would have drawn that one too, but it's pretty obvious then that you got two tiers going on here, and then you close and you high. So I mean, this is a skill, so you won't be able to draw these trend lines perfect right out of the gate. But if you're struggling to draw them, you're probably looking too hard. Drop down and try to find the more micro or small or shorter term trends and channels. So you can see there's a very, it's basically congestion, but all congestion is a micro range. So uh, just keep that in mind. But anyway, you can clearly see there's two legs down here, and in the meantime, we just kind of went sideways. So the problem with this range is there's not any real clear, consistent. The support was relatively clear down here, but we bounced a few times in between, and early on it looked like it was going to be clear up here, and then it wasn't so clear. So it's hard to trade that, and you got to be real careful trading in the middle. So anyway, I'm going to back out or zoom in, and we'll go through the trades. 7 o'clock came just as we're rolling over right here. We already had a break and a new low, but sometimes you'll get two legs down to a new low. But you got a little channel working up. You get a close outside, you get a first entry, and then you get a little failed second entry short there that turns up. It's a little bit congestive, so I marked it green. You may go long there. Um, the key is, do you have enough room to get out? And if you do, then you'd have to use a limit order, or you might enter on the engulfing bar. It breaks lower and turns up. I get questions about, people will hear me mention engulfing bar, and people just, their ears perk up and they start saying, well, can you make a video on engulfing? There's not enough to know about engulfing bars. An engulfing bar is simply a bar that the low and the high is outside the bar to the left of it, and they're tough to trade. So just leave them alone. If you want to ask a question about it, means you should just leave it alone. Because as you start to trade and you watch it and you get more screen time and more experience, and I think sometimes people think that's a cop out for me just not wanting to answer the question, but it's the truth. If you've got to ask, it's too complicated. It's too advanced for you. Not necessarily complicated, but it's too advanced. This stuff build on pieces, and if you try to start learning them all at once, it's just gonna be way too much for you. So stick to the basics, and over time, some of the more advanced stuff once you get the very basics down, they'll start to make more sense to you. So if you don't understand engulfing bars, just don't trade them. And that's the best advice I could give you. Don't study them when you see them and see how they react, and you'll see they're, especially when we're going sideways, they're not that reliable. So therefore, I mark that one green. However, it's going to act as a trap, and as long as you got room there, you may get out of that. So you can clearly see we're still making higher highs and higher lows right there. So anyway, and we just continued sideways. I don't really see anything I like here. There's some support here, but you're not really getting rejection off of it. You should have went higher here, and you don't. You come back, you test it a few more times, and eventually it pushes on up. But that's really congestive right there. Just, you might say, hey, there's a triple test, but you're not getting rejection. And it still closes it below the EMA, so just not a good place to trade. And then finally we push up here, and then you get a little failed breakout, and you get this real bearish bar here. And so I like going short just to hope we come back. At that point, I was looking at this as a channel here, but it turns out that it looks like it's two-tiered in the end. So you're just looking for prices to come back down here. And you got enough room with the EMA there. You might let it break lower and drop a limit and see if you get filled, but I don't think you would. This dropped real quick because it trapped longs here. All these people were loading up on longs thinking that we were going higher, and they trap them out. That's why you don't buy on a breakout, because you'll get trapped just like this. When it breaks that one tick and instantly closes that bearish, they've trapped them. Go short right there. And it drops down real quickly. Then you try to go higher once, and it turns back down, and then it turns back up on the second entry. There's actually a second entry long there, but this channel hadn't played out, so I'd still be looking for a possible short. So when you get that failure with this big bar, I like going short there just to see it run down a measured move, and it actually runs down a little further than that. That turns out to be a nice trap right there. And of course, we push a little lower, then we come back and we bounce a perfect measured move, and then you got to realize, hey, this is a two-tiered channel, and we just run back to the other side. There's no longs down here though, no real good short setup either. That's just too congestive, not a good enough signal bar, and you can see what happens. It pushes back up and goes higher and breaks out. Then we just go into this real tight congestion here, and you don't want to be going long up here. You might go short. Well, you might take a long here in this channel if it continues to hold, if you get enough room, but you don't. You finally get a short here, but again, you got to have enough room to scalp out before here. If you don't, let it break lower and drop a limit order high enough in where you do. Turns out it doesn't matter here, but you would have scalped out of that anyway. But you probably get a runner here. And then notice what happens. You got a new high right there, and it tries to go higher. Actually, you got a double top, so you can count that as a new high. Try to go higher once, try to go higher twice. It fails. Look, it's back inside the range. It comes back and tests it. And so if it breaks lower there, it's probably going to trap people. It took that one a second to take off, but I think most people had their stops right here. And notice once it hits them, it drops them down real quickly. That was a nice trade. I like that trade. And then, of course, we bounce. And we turn. But you notice you got this trend channel. I drew it this way. Somehow my trends moved a little bit. It looks like we actually get an overshoot here too as well. So, but I don't think we get a break outside or anything right there. We just have two legs down, then it corrects two legs up, and then we turn back down again. But anyway, you're working back up. You get a close outside the new high, but you don't get a setup. Then you try to go higher once, twice, and if it breaks lower right there, it's probably going to trap people. It's not a great setup, but you can see it clearly comes back and tests the midline a couple of times like it's going to go on down to the lows, and there's plenty of room there. And so the fact that we tried to go higher and you get that little double test there, if it breaks lower, you're probably going to get at least a scalp, and we're probably going down here, although unfortunately we only get a scalp out of that one. You actually get a little more in the scalp. I think I actually took that trade and got a little bit of a runner on it. So, but anyway, we bounce and we just start working sideways, and that's just too tight. I don't see anything in there that would interest me. You do break higher here, but it's just you still close right inside there. Drops down, comes back, and I just don't see anything in here I like. There's no real good setups to get long here. Now notice there is a low, and you get a first entry and a second entry, so when it breaks higher here, it's a failure, but you haven't even touched the EMA yet. Actually, you do break down, drop down, and then turn up, and it's an engulfing bar, but look how it's sideways stuff. You know, my feeling is stay out of that, and it pretty, even though it pushed on higher, it proved me right because it looks like congestion, and that's what happens. I don't have it drawn there, but just draw your little channel, and you can see you just don't want to go long into that. It ends up pushing on through, but you don't know that. It could drop out the bottom just as easy. That's the thing. We don't know. Congestion is just a micro range, and we don't know what a range is going to do. Most of the time, a breakout will fail. Here it failed, but you don't know how far it's going to go before it fails. It might be one tick, it might be 1 point, it might be 5 points. It's just too unpredictable, so just be careful trading it or don't trade it at all. Of course, we run up and you have a failed breakout at the top, and then we're heading lower again. But unfortunately, you just don't get a chance to trade this. No good setups. Runs all the way down, breaks out, has a little failed break lower, comes back and tests the lows once, twice, and holds. You get a nice bullish bar, plenty of room back to the EMA. I like taking that trade. And if you take that, you get somewhat of a runner. Doesn't go all the way back to the top, but you can clearly see you get a break there and a move to a new high. And you get a chance to go short. So pretty good trade there. But notice the break, 2 legs up to a new high, and then you get this big bearish bar. The reason I like this one is because you're far away from the EMA, and it looks like 2 legs up, and this one has 2 swings in it, really. And it's just such a good signal bar. You don't know that it's going to run straight back down and be the next, continue on with that next leg, but you figure you're just going to get a scalp, and hey, maybe it does go back lower. It was kind of a surprise. It broke on lower and just keeps going, though. There is a first entry there and then a second entry, but we just came off what looks like the lows, so you got to be real careful. You don't want to go long. There's no rejection here at the lows, so you don't want to go long there. There is a failed breakout that you might consider here, but I'd wait on a higher low, which comes here, and then you just don't get a setup. And it ends up just confirming this trend line and going lower. No entries there. It's all just too sideways. This one was very tempting, but you got to go short right into those lows, and you see what happens. You probably get trapped, and it comes back. You wouldn't have got stopped out before it went lower, but it's just not worth risking having to sit there through all that with the chance that, hey, we've had a close outside a new low. We may go higher now. And all it does is push lower and fail, and your measured move is right there. And it pushes lower, traps everybody, and then it runs the other way. Now, you do get a nice reversal. Notice you basically got this double bottom, and you get a first entry and a second entry, and it looks like 2 clear legs. It fails, so if it breaks higher there, we're probably going higher. And off it goes. I don't think you get a runner on that one, unfortunately, but it runs straight back up, tests the breakout, has a correction. And again, there's a little trap. Notice you made that. You got to close outside new high, then you get a first entry, and you get a second entry. It's only by a tick, but notice how we push through the EMA. So if it breaks lower there, we could be heading back down to the lows again, because we could get a measured move similar to the range up here, and we could retest these lows one more time. It's good for a quick, easy scalp, and then it reverses. And that pretty much takes us into the close. I don't see anything else here I like. There are 2 legs up here, but you're coming down and you're just kind of going sideways. It doesn't look like rejection. It ends up bouncing and would have worked, but it's just not a good reversal pattern. You really want to see this support hold and give you a setup, and you don't get that. Of course, we do push back up, and again, I don't see anything. We're just kind of sideways, not much volume left. That takes us into 3 o'clock. much past 2 o'clock, there was nothing there. Nothing that interests me. There is a triple test here, but the signal bar is no good. You did get another one here, but you're kind of going long at the highs of some resistance across there. And so I just think there was nothing worth risking up there that late in the day. Of course, your channel actually keeps going here. So that's the way I saw it. Really, you just have two legs down, and in between we just went sideways. When prices can't get back up and rally, and they keep pushing to these lows, eventually if they break through, look for that measured move. And you might have even measured, this is your first leg, of course, right here. And you might have even noticed that the second leg down started right here. So you might have measured from there, and that gets you even a little more accurate. But generally, it's from the highest point, and that was here. And you can see we did bounce off that to the tick right there before we pushed lower and trapped a few people and reversed. So that's how I saw it today. So that's going to wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Fridays if you're new. So we'll be back again to do it Monday. I'm going to wrap it up for today, and that wraps up our chart lessons for the week. We'll be back again to do it Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next